Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. So, last week I declared that all cops are criminals and they should quit before they find themselves behind bars. And it seems like they've gotten the message. But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. Let's get started. From G to the H. I'm assuming that's how you say that. I wonder if city cops now realize that the low pay really isn't worth it. And why does he say it's not worth it? Well, let me show you a quick video of what happened in New York just yesterday. So here's an older detective filling out a police report because there was most likely an anti-Asian hate crime that occurred in New York, which seems to be the only crimes currently being committed in New York. Uh, and just watch and see, guys. That whack was somebody smacking him in the head with a metal pole. And sadly, I don't think they're going to catch that guy. Those cops chasing him are fat. It ain't going to happen. That guy's going to get away. And sadly, in New York City, even if he gets caught, even if he's arrested and booked, the DA is just going to release him on a cashless bond because that's currently what's happening, or a cashless bail, because that's what's happening in New York City. You have these criminals being let out on the streets within hours of being arrested. So this guy assaults a police officer. He's just going to get cut loose in a couple of hours if he was ever arrested. They never say. So I'm assuming he never was because those cops were probably not fit enough to catch him. From Marina Medvin, NYPD officers leaving in droves, 75% increase in quitting or retirement in 2020. Over 830 officers have already left the NYPD this year. Let's listen to this Fox News segment because it does a really good job explaining what's happening in the Northeast.
Harris, I don't know how to be any more frank than this. Our profession is dying. In New York, retirements were up 75%. On the recruitment side, the New Jersey State Troopers said they saw a 90% reduction in applications. In Colorado, 70% of agencies said that their recruitment is tanking. And as a result of all of these things happening in law enforcement, our communities are being harmed. We have seen over 20,000 homicides last year, which is the first time we've been over 20,000 in this country since the 1990s. Our profession is dying, our community is suffering, and there's not going to be anybody left to take this job.
Real quickly, Congresswoman, when you hear the words,
and he brings up a good point. There's not going to be anybody interested in being underpaid to be assaulted, to be treated like garbage. You have people spitting on cops, throwing bricks at them, throwing explosives at them. They get paid on average $60,000 to $70,000 a year around the country. Why would you risk your life for that? Why would you risk your safety for that? And then if you enforce these unconstitutional laws implemented by these Democrat politicians, or following the rules of engagement laid out by these Democrat politicians, guess what? You're going to find yourselves in prison. Find another job before you find yourself in jail, police. From Katie Davis Court, Seattle police mass exodus. 66 officers so far this year have left, 100 by the end of May. In 2020, there was only 193. So 5 months into this year, we're already on pace to break last year's record in Seattle. That's something to keep in mind. Here's a pay chart of adjusted police salaries by state. So where I live in Texas, the average police officer makes about $65,000 a year. The highest wage earners are in California, where the average mean wage is $100,090. In Alaska, it's $78,000. Florida, it's $60,000. Let's see, where's a high crime state that's going on? In New York, they get paid $63,000 a year to have explosives thrown at them. In Oregon, where Portland is, nearly $69,000. Colorado, they get paid nearly $70,000. Illinois, they actually get paid pretty well, but I guess you have to if you live in Chirac. They make $75,000 a year. New Jersey makes nearly $76,000 a year. Let's see where they make the least amount of money. Louisiana makes about $43,000 a year, but it's not like it doesn't necessarily cost a lot to live in Louisiana. Mississippi makes $41,111 a year. And their real wage is 35 grand a year, but their adjusted wage is 41,000. So they get paid the least in Mississippi. From Jack Posobiec, Antifa can roam the streets, but you can't go to church. So this is what I mean. These politicians have their thug police enforce unconstitutional laws. They allow Antifa to roam the streets, to set fires to courthouses, set fires to government buildings, destroy the glass, loot, rob, murder in the streets. They just allow this to happen. They encourage it. Ted Wheeler in Portland basically sides with Antifa up until this year, where it's now politically inconvenient for him to be dealing with Antifa. And now he says, hey, we need to unmask these thugs. We need to chase them out of our city. We need to arrest them. We need to hold these people accountable for their actions. But guess what? You allowed these anarchists to rule over your city for a year. You let the dog off the leash, and now he's just biting everybody. And it's your fault, Ted Wheeler. But it's not just that. You allow Antifa to roam the streets, and you have your police enforce no church service, no restaurant service, no small businesses. Oh, if you're not wearing a mask inside, we're going to arrest you. But it's okay. You don't need to wear a mask when you're burning down an Apple store or a Wendy's. That's fine, guys, because the threat of systemic racism is worse than COVID-19 ever was. Even though COVID-19 disproportionately affected people of color. So it's okay. You don't need to wear a mask when you're protesting racism, because racism is worse than COVID, even though COVID disproportionately affects people of color. It's almost like they want to see people of color die. But that's an argument for another day, folks. When you had in Portland, I showed this video, a guy protecting himself in his vehicle that was being attacked. They smashed the windows. They're spraying bear spray in this man's face. He pulled out a gun. He didn't point it at anybody. He loaded around into the chamber and pointed it at the ground and said, you need to get back. And who was arrested? It wasn't the people throwing bricks at this gentleman or at his vehicle. It wasn't the people bear spraying him in the face. It was the man who was defending himself with a gun, legally defending himself with a legally owned firearm. This is the upside down, where wrong is right and where right is wrong. You can't live in a society where you are not allowed to defend yourself, especially if the police are not going to defend you. You can't have it both ways. You can't defund the police and take away my gun. Because I would understand if you said the police are tasked in taking care of you. We're going to increase funding to police so we can increase their response time. Because a few months ago, there was a man beating his wife down the street from where I lived in his driveway. It took the police 45 minutes to show up. I called 911 and said, am I allowed to essentially make a citizen's arrest? Because I don't know if he's going to beat this woman to death. I can't have that on my conscience. And they said, sir, the police will get there as soon as they can. And I said, am I allowed to intervene? And they said, no. What are you supposed to do? You cut back on police. And then you tell the citizens that they can't enforce the laws. They can't maintain order within their own communities. You can't have it both ways, Democrats. Because criminals will still criminal, no matter how many or how few guns are on the street. And that's something we need to keep in mind. We need police. We need to also be able to arm ourselves. But if you want to defund the police, fine. My response time is going to be far quicker than a police officer ever will, because it's not like I have a police officer always 10 feet behind me. So if I witness a robbery going on, I can intervene. If I witness a spouse or a husband beating his wife in his driveway, guess what? I can intervene. I can step in. I can de-escalate this or de-escalate. Yeah, de-escalate what's going on. And then the police can come and take over the scene. That's the way it used to work. I don't understand how we've gotten away from this. But I'll leave you with this. You need to have the skills to protect yourself because, like I said, 45-minute police response time is unacceptable. I pay too much in property taxes. I pay too much in state taxes. I pay too much in local taxes. I pay too much for my sales tax expense for my business. I pay too much to the government to not receive a service. But I can't really do anything about that except for vote, right? But one thing I can do is have the skills needed to protect myself because you can't always depend on others to protect you. Whether you choose to learn MMA, jiu-jitsu, learn how to use a firearm, learn how to use a knife, learn how to run really fast, because that's also a good defense mechanism. If you're really fast and you can run a 5-minute mile and you can run 4 of those miles, guess what? Most criminals aren't going to be chasing you down to try to get your wallet. And it's not like they're going to shoot you so they can be charged for murder while in the act of robbing you, right? So learn whatever your strength is at defense. If you have quick reaction times, maybe boxing. If you have really good hand-eye coordination, maybe you should get a gun. You need to learn how to defend yourself because there isn't always going to be someone there to protect you. So that's going to be it for now, folks. How about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. Have a good one. Bye.